everyone, and welcome to Cherry Bekaert's Digital Journeys podcast. My name is Jim Holman, and I'm pleased to host today's episode in a brief series about continuous improvement. In this session, we will talk about continuous improvement broadly and important things to consider when implementing a practice of continuous improvement. In our second session, we will talk about a straightforward approach to baseline your organization's improvement maturity and help clarify attributes to advance your practice. In our third session, we'll talk more tactically about advancing your improvement practice and how to create focus on the best initiatives for business impact. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Steve Holliday. We're both part of Cherry Bekaert's digital advisory practice, in which we guide our clients forward in their digital transformation journeys. Steve, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Jim, it's a privilege to be here.
What we'd like to discuss today and share with our audience is guidance to help them start or advance their initiatives to drive improvement anywhere in the business. But before we get started with that, Steve, help me set the stage. When we talk about continuous improvement, what does that mean?
Certainly, Jim. I mean, if we were to look up continuous improvement, a definition of it, it would say something like this. It's an ongoing process of identifying, analyzing, and making incremental improvements to systems, processes, products, or service. Its purpose is to drive efficiency, improve quality, and value delivery while minimizing waste, variation, and defects. That's the book definition. It's a general definition, but we'll get into a little bit more detail about how this gets operationalized in the business.
Gotcha. So, Steve, you've been helping companies with continuous improvement for almost 30 years. One could say you've been continuously improving. What are some key lessons that you've learned that are essential to success?
Yeah, I feel like I've lived and breathed continuous improvement. Certainly, these views that I'm about to share, they've evolved with experience. Both personally and broadly in the improvement community, but here they are. We're going to unpack these a little bit further as we go. But the first one would be continuous improvement needs to be organized and intentional. The second one would be continuous improvement needs to be aligned, with the organization's key objectives, supported by management, and also driven by frontline teams. The third is the best results occur when improvement efforts are balanced with capacity to deliver, when efforts are focused on business impact and time to value, and when experienced coaches are available to support management and frontline teams. Finally, we look at long-term results, and that the best long-term results are when all of the above gets embedded into the organizational culture, objectives, and standard work.
So let's begin with the first point. You mentioned that continuous improvement needs to be organized and intentional. So give the listening audience an example of what this looks like in a practical business setting.
Certainly. An example could be a manufacturing firm where they've organized the Kaizen event, which is a form of continuous improvement to identify inefficiencies in their assembly line. These events are intentional, they're planned, and involve relevant stakeholders, ensuring that their improvements are systematic and purposeful. Moreover, we want to be sure that these events are aligned with key strategic priorities, and there is an overarching improvement structure that helps sustain efforts over time. So it's not an isolated event, it's something that's part of a programmatic approach.
Right. So it's often observed that management might have short-term focused objectives. Certainly in the current economy, there's revenue and profit crunch that are driving attention. So that may not seem aligned with continuous improvement, which I think may have a reputation of being slower. So how should companies handle potential misalignment between a short-term and a long-term objective?
Well, my experience, I've actually seen in companies where they try to accelerate continuous improvement projects to hit critical, call it quarter end dates or month end dates, because those benefits are going to flow to the bottom line. But in reality, we've got, both a long-term and short-term perspective with continuous improvement. It isn't, in fact, incompatible. The short-term goals are steps towards longer-term, larger improvements. The key, though, that's important is that you have effective communication between management and your frontline teams that help ensure that everyone understands, the projects that are in the pipeline, and the impact that these are expected to have for the business, and that those smaller, quicker wins do contribute to the broader improvement vision.
Yeah, it's always helpful to get some momentum and to get some buy-in with those wins that are able to get everybody on the same page quick. So you mentioned that back to the significant long-term results, which are there inherent in continuous improvement. It's most effective and the best long-term results occur when continuous improvement is embedded into the organization's culture. It's not just a project. Could you elaborate on how a company can achieve that cultural shift?
Absolutely. Embedding continuous improvement into an organization culture begins with leadership. Leadership plays a super critical role. First of all, leaders need to promote a mindset of constant learning and improvement. If people aren't challenged to learn and make personal improvements, then it's kind of hard to sustain this kind of culture. Also, creating an environment where there's regular training, where you're rewarding employee suggestions, and also celebrating improvement successes. And we're back to leaders again. Leaders really need to walk the talk on improvement. Nothing kills improvement initiatives faster than a leader that does not behave in a way that's consistent with the talk around improvement. I say inspect what they expect, right? That's an important aspect. If they expect certain behaviors, they go out and inspect that, and then they themselves are behaving in that way as well. Over time, all of this aligns the organization on improvement and fosters a culture where every employee feels part of the improvement journey.
Outstanding. Steve, thanks so much for the insightful discussion day as always. I know much of what we covered is just a brief synopsis of continuous improvement, and we've got a lot more to cover. So for anyone listening who wants to explore their business's improvement processes, we are here to be your guide forward and can offer an assessment to help you along the way. So stay tuned for parts 2 and 3 in the series. Please reach out to any one of us in the contact information listed wherever you're listening from to this podcast, or go to cbh.com/digital. Thank you as always for tuning into Cherry Bekaert's Digital Journeys podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and follow along so you don't miss the next episode in this series on how to optimize operations for your organization.